India's $30 trillion dream. That's right. India as an economy could be worth $30 trillion by the year 2047. That is 23 years from now. The problem here is, at what rate does Indian economy needs to grow to reach that figure? Because bear in mind, we're at $3 trillion at this stage. And they say to become a $5 trillion economy by the year 2028, we need to grow at 7.6%. But currently, RBI's own projection for the current financial year and the next one is around 6.5%. The World Bank's projection for India's GDP is just around 6.3%, and so is the IMF's. But do you know how much it will take for India to grow to become a $30 trillion economy by the year 2047? It could take 9.46%. That's how much. So how will that delta be bridged? To understand this better, to understand how close, how possible is India's $30 trillion dream, we have Mr. Shreedhran joining us live on this broadcast. Srinath, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here. I just want to begin by asking you, Srinath, the numbers don't seem to add up at this stage. The way growth rates are right now, 6.5% odd, and we're looking at a so-called IT washout year. Going forward, the India's IT sector having a washout year as well. In these circumstances, for India, they say to become a proper high-income economy, to exit the middle-income economy trap, it needs to grow at 7.6%. And to achieve the $30 trillion dream, the number is anywhere between 9.5% to 10%. How do you view these numbers?
So I think Krishna very rightly used the word called the dream, right? I mean, there's an aspiration for every country, and we should have that dream. But economists and analysts who run these Excel sheet models don't realize much of those people who comment on these numbers may not be alive when these numbers actually get done. I mean, that's a reality. So I think a lot of it is also optical narrative that we need to get going. But having said that, can we use some of these to bring it into the micro planning, especially, for example, the 16th Finance Commission is going to be formed. So will these also form an input, lot of input to not just the central government, but also the state governments? Because central government alone cannot do much of weightlifting here. So that's one question that we need to have. And considering that Niti Aayog has been tasked with doing this, how will this play it out politically? Because Finance Commission is a political institution. End of the day, it deals with the political challenges of the federalism there. So I have my doubts about a lot of these plans. These plans are good. These plans, if we can make it into a national mission, great. But again, as the corporates, what we do is we typically roll out a mission and have a dashboard of where we are on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. So can we get that done as a country? Otherwise, a lot of these are only meaningless, according to me.
Right. Also, talk to us about, for India to achieve this, dream of being worthy of an economy. Take a look at those estimates as far as exports and imports are concerned. By 2030, we're talking about $1.8 trillion or $1.9 trillion worth of imports versus about $1.58 trillion worth of exports. And then by 2040, that number triples to 4.56 and 5.92, and by 2047 that number has to be more than $8.5 trillion worth of exports and over $12 trillion worth of imports. And Srinath, I'm going to keep this question very short. We know the challenges we're facing when it comes to managing our balance of trade, and at a time when we're trying to deal with that, how do you see these projections? India being able to achieve that quantum leap as far as both imports and exports are concerned.
See, I think we are probably betting on the geopolitical heft that we will end up having the next couple of years, and the larger economy that India would be, its ability to demand or negotiate better deals and margins for itself, which I think there is already work in progress, right? If you look at the various FTA that India has been signing bilaterally, apart from the multilateral institutions or regional blocs, India has been signing a lot of FTAs. So a lot of those could come in handy in achieving these numbers. So here, I think we've already put together a plan. Whether we'll achieve those numbers or fall short of it, that's fine, but there is a plan. Larger intent should be, are we actually on the ground? Is our industry ready to deliver those? Because exports have to be delivered by the industry. At this point in time, I think the next 10-year runway that it shows should be able to, but will the states match it up, not just the center? That's a big, big question mark again.
Right, state administrations, will they match it up? We will continue that same argument further, take it further to per capita GDP. Look at those numbers. We need to be having per capita GDP of over $4,400 by the year 2030, over $10,000 by the year 2040, and over $17,500 by the year 2047. Those numbers sound like sweet poetry, but the thing is that poetry is what they say it is, isn't it, Srinath? And not always fully factual.
So poetry is for those who read literature or those who are having a drink, or is it actually for the economists? So the challenge, you're right, Krishna. I mean, these numbers look very, very sweet. Are they tenable? Looks very, very difficult. Growing at 9 to 10% annually for a long period of time, I think no other country has done this. So I have my ifs and buts there. And end of the day, let's face it, we live in a geopolitically volatile times, and I think it is not going to be easy. I would be probably more little realistic. I don't know whether it is the political optics of an election year we do these numbers or what. I am not too sure. But I think from the industry perspective, I don't think any industry is putting these large numbers out yet.
Okay, then any industry is being able to do that, is the word coming in from Shreedhran. Srinath, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us and to help put that $30 trillion dream into perspective. I'm going to ask you one last question before I let you go. The one question is that how do we approach the Indian economy and its growth going forward? Then if you don't want to believe in poetry, tell us some prose that we can we can go by.
So I think I want to here quote the famous author, psychologist, Dr. Scott Peck. His book, Road Less Traveled, the very first sentence is, life is difficult. I think if we can fathom that and say growth is difficult, growth is attainable, but it will come at a cost. I think we'll have to be very realistic there. And I think painting some of these without on a broad brush kind of negates or forgets that there are challenges. Growth is aggregate growth. It does not mean inclusive growth. I would be very happy if Niti Aayog brings conversations around inclusiveness of saying how do we ensure that every state of socioeconomic segment will also grow, not just apart from the aggregate growth that the Indian economy will have.
All right. The one thing I will say is that, never say never. Never say it's impossible for us to grow at 9.45%. I'm always looking for us to cross the Rubicon. And, as far as India's growth rates are concerned and exit this 6.5-7% region and get into that 9-10 double-digit percentage, why not? We have what it takes to get those growth rates that China did in the 90s. It's just a matter of, getting our resources together. And as you said, the center and the states together to perform at their best of their abilities to get there. But for now, Srinath will let go of you. Thank you so much for putting things into perspective as far as India's $30 trillion dream is concerned.